That day, at the will reading, when Attorney Patterson read the line confirming that I was the legal heir to the mansion and $5 million, I hadn't even caught my breath when the back door swung open. Robert Harris, the man who had once been my husband, the one who walked out on me 5 years ago when I was 5 months pregnant, stepped inside. He wore a crisp suit, flashing that charming smile I once trusted. "Amanda, I'm here to help you and Liam," he said, his voice sweet but false. "We'll manage this estate together." My heart clenched, not from hope, but from the old wound breaking open. I knew that greedy look in his eyes. He wasn't here for me or my son. He was here for the money. I am Amanda. I'm 28 years old, and I used to live with Robert Harris, my husband, and his parents, James and Claire, in a cramped rental house. Life wasn't easy, but I believed we were building a future. Robert worked long days at the car dealership, always chasing big deals, while I stayed home, trying to keep the peace with his parents. I once believed that love was strong enough to shield me from his family's cold stares. But the truth was, the pressure from James, and especially from his mother, Claire, had changed Robert. Claire had a way of making me feel small with just a glance. "You don't fold laundry properly, the stew is too bland." I remember once when we were at dinner with relatives, Claire gave a cold laugh and said right in front of everyone, "Why can't you be more like Lisa, Robert's ex-girlfriend?" Laughter broke out around the table while I sat in silence, my hands trembling under the table, hiding my humiliation. I waited for Robert to react, but he only gave a weak smile, then looked away, leaving me to swallow the sting of being compared and belittled. I tried my best. I cooked, I cleaned. I endured Claire's sarcasm, hoping Robert would see how hard I was trying. But he was always busy, coming home late, talking only about work or his parents' plans to buy a bigger house. I thought it was just pressure, until one day I returned from a prenatal checkup, excited to show Liam's ultrasound photo, only to find the house empty, not just of people, but of furniture too. The fridge was bare, the chairs and tables gone, and on the table lay a note saying the lease had been terminated, and a hastily folded scrap of paper in handwriting I knew too well. "I'm sorry, I don't have the strength to carry you and the baby." The tone was so cold I no longer recognized the man who once swore he'd protect me forever. I stood in the empty house, one hand cradling my 5-month belly, my feet rooted to the floor, and I understood one thing. Robert, James, Claire, they had all left, moving on to a new city, a new life, without a word. I panicked, calling Robert again and again, but all I heard were unanswered rings. In my purse, while searching for some shred of hope, my hand brushed against an old notebook. On the last page was a faded phone number belonging to Samantha, my mother's distant cousin. I vaguely recalled my mother once saying, "If you ever fall on hard times, go to Arkansas. Samantha is strict, but she keeps her word." That night, clutching my belly, I boarded a bus across states. Outside the window, the streetlights grew dim, tears slid down my face, and I whispered to the child not yet born, "I won't abandon you. We will find another home." I didn't know then that this journey would open an entirely new chapter, where I would find true family, and where 5 years later, I would also have to face Robert's return in a different form, greedy, deceitful, and more dangerous than ever. The bus door closed behind me with a harsh hiss, leaving me with an old suitcase and a ticket in my hand. I was 28 years old, 5 months pregnant, and on my way to Arkansas to find Aunt Samantha, someone I only knew through a few birthday cards and faint childhood memories. Outside, it was pitch dark, a light drizzle blurring the glow of the streetlights. I held my belly, feeling the baby stir, and wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The bus rumbled through the night, the engine's drone a constant reminder that there was no turning back. I had called Aunt Samantha from a gas station, my voice trembling as I told her how Robert and his family had abandoned me. "Come right away," she said, her voice firm but gentle, as if she had been waiting for this call all along. I clung to her words, though worry still flooded my chest. Would she really welcome me? A pregnant woman with no home, no money. Was that too heavy a burden? The journey lasted 8 hours, every jolt of the bus sending sharp pain through my back. I curled up on the seat, my thin coat useless against the chill of a summer night. An old woman sitting next to me asked where I was headed, and when I said Arkansas to find family, she looked at me with pity. "You'll be all right, dear," she said, but I wasn't sure I believed it. I thought about Robert, about the way he left without a word, about Claire's cold stare when she told me I wasn't worthy of her son. I gripped the ultrasound photo in my bag, telling myself that no matter what, I had to be strong for Liam. When the bus pulled into Little Rock at dawn, I was nearly exhausted. I dragged my suitcase down a gravel path leading to Aunt Samantha's estate, my heart pounding. The house rose before me like something out of a dream. A 2-story mansion with tall white columns, a wide front lawn shaded by rows of oak trees. I stood at the gate, hesitated, then pressed the bell. The door opened, and Aunt Samantha appeared. She was tall, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a crisp white blouse and black slacks, as if she had just stepped out of an important meeting. But when she looked at me, her sharp blue eyes softened. "Amanda," she said, her voice warm, "you've come." She stepped forward and hugged me gently, careful not to touch my belly. In her eyes, I saw no pity, only certainty, as if she had been waiting for me all along. I wanted to cry, but I only nodded, afraid that if I spoke, I would fall apart. Aunt Samantha led me into the living room, where the scent of polished wood and lavender lingered. Everything about the house spoke of elegance: velvet upholstered chairs, oil paintings on the walls, and an antique clock ticking steadily. "Sit down," she said, pouring me a glass of cool lemonade. "I've prepared a room for you and the baby." I was surprised, not expecting her to be so ready to take me in. "I've known for a long time you would need me," she said, as if reading my thoughts. "When you were little, I sent you books, remember? You once wrote back, thanking me, saying you wanted to meet me. I always thought of you." Memories came rushing back, the carefully wrapped children's books, with handwritten notes from Aunt Samantha, which I had kept in my keepsake box. That was why I had dared to come to her today. At that moment, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. A young man entered, tall and steady. He looked to be around 30, with a strong build under a simple shirt, a chiseled face with a high bridge nose, and gray eyes that seemed to see through everything. This was Wesley, Aunt Samantha's adopted son. She introduced us. "Wesley, this is Amanda, my niece. Wesley is—" She hesitated briefly when mentioning his job. "An engineer working for a construction company in the city." Wesley gave a nod without a smile and simply said, "Hi." His voice was deep and clipped, as if he didn't want to waste words. He was striking in appearance, with sharp features, a square jaw, and a confident walk. But the coldness in his eyes made me uneasy. "Wesley will help you get settled," Aunt Samantha said. But he only glanced at me once before turning away, taking his coffee and disappearing into the kitchen. I felt like an intruder, but Aunt Samantha placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry, Wesley just needs time. He's kind, but he's not good at showing it." I nodded, but deep down, I wondered if I really belonged here. The first days at Aunt Samantha's house passed like a hazy dream, caught between fear and fragile hope. I woke each morning in the cozy guest room she had prepared, with a large bed, cream-colored curtains that softened the light, and a small cradle ready for Liam. Aunt Samantha, with a voice that was firm yet full of care, began guiding me step by step. "Amanda, you need to learn to take care of yourself first," she said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder while brewing a cup of herbal tea. She taught me how to cook nourishing meals for pregnancy, like vitamin-rich vegetable soup, and how to monitor the baby's heartbeat with a home device. I, a woman who once believed myself weak, slowly learned how to become a single mother under her patient instruction. Every afternoon we sat by the window, and she shared stories of how she overcame her own hardships after divorce, her voice steady and warm, her eyes shining as though she was passing her strength into me. "You're stronger than you think, Amanda. Liam needs a resilient mother." Wesley was entirely different. At first, he was like a wall of ice, avoiding me with curt nods and clipped words. He often sat alone at the dining table, eyes glued to his laptop, reviewing construction blueprints. I tried to break the silence by preparing dinners, simple meals like grilled meat with salad, the aroma filling the house. The first time, he only muttered thanks and ate quickly. But gradually, after a few weeks, he started staying longer, asking about the recipes. "This is good," he said one evening, his voice a little hesitant, his eyes meeting mine for the first time without judgment. The real change came one stormy night. I was 6 months along when a sudden, sharp abdominal pain struck. An unexpected pregnancy complication. I collapsed on the kitchen floor, clutching my belly, cold sweat pouring, my face drained of color as fear took over. "Aunt Samantha! Wesley!" I screamed, my voice breaking under the pain. Aunt Samantha rushed in, her face pale, but she quickly called for an ambulance. Wesley, who had been in the garage, burst inside, his eyes wide with alarm. He scooped me up and carried me to the car, his face tense in a way I had never seen. Aunt Samantha sat in the back seat, gripping my hand tightly and speaking firmly. "Breathe deep, Amanda. Listen to me. Breathe. Everything will be all right." The tires screeched down the dark road, streetlights flashing past like blades slicing the night. I clung to Wesley's shirt, feeling his heartbeat pounding against his chest, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on the road. In that moment, I realized the coldness he carried before was only a shell. That night, the baby was saved. When I woke in the hospital room, Wesley had stayed all night sitting at my bedside, and for the first time he gave me a faint smile. "You're tough, Amanda." From that moment, he changed. He began asking about the baby, even helped me assemble the cradle, his voice warmer, his gaze no longer cold. The distance between us began to fade, replaced with a quiet comfort. Even as life slowly steadied, I couldn't forget Robert. I tried to reach him, hoping for an explanation, a glimmer of hope for Liam. I sent the first email from Aunt Samantha's computer. "Robert, I'm in Arkansas. We need to talk about the baby." No reply. Then I called, my heart racing as the phone rang, but only met the flat tone of a blocked number. I tried again from another phone, but all I heard was silence, the sound of a call cut short. Each failure carved deeper into me, tears streaming down my face as I gripped the phone like I could crush the pain itself. "Why is he doing this?" I whispered to myself, my voice breaking. I asked Wesley for help. He hesitated, then nodded. "Let me try." My heart ached, but still foolishly hoped for a miracle. Maybe he was struggling, maybe. Then one evening, just after I had set the phone down, Wesley walked into the living room, holding a stack of documents, his eyes heavy. He looked at me for a long moment, as if he couldn't keep staring any longer. Wesley led me out to the backyard. Moonlight spilled over the flower garden, the breeze carrying the faint scent of grass. He sat down on the stone bench, his voice low. "Amanda, I have news about Robert." My chest tightened. My hands trembled around the glass of water. Wesley sighed, his gaze drifting far away. "Amanda, you need to know the truth. Robert isn't missing. He isn't struggling. He moved to Houston with his mistress. She's his boss, a wealthy woman. His parents went with him, living in a luxury apartment she provides." I felt the world collapse. "Mistress! He betrayed me," I screamed, my voice breaking as tears streamed down like rain, my hand clutching my chest to contain the agony. Furious, I struck the stone bench until my knuckles bled, then crumpled to the ground, sobbing. "He left me for another woman? And his parents helped him?" Wesley started to reach for my shoulder but stopped, only saying quietly, "You don't need to look back anymore. You have your son, you have Aunt Samantha, and you have me." A few days later, as if to seal the wound, I received a message from my former mother-in-law, Claire. "Forget Robert, Amanda. We have a new life now. Don't bother us anymore." I stared at the phone screen, humiliation and rage rising to my throat. I deleted the message, but in my heart I carved a vow. I would never again let them touch my life or my son's. Not ever. Act 4. After the storm of emotions from the truth about Robert, I decided to close the past and build a future. 5 years went by without a single word from him or my former in-laws. No emails, no calls, nothing. At first, the silence was like an open wound, but gradually it became the drive that made me stronger. I started working part-time at Aunt Samantha's financial firm, where she was the CEO. She led me into a bright office filled with computer screens flashing numbers, her voice enthusiastic. "Amanda, you'll start as an assistant. I'll teach you about financial management, how to read reports, how to invest wisely." I sat at a desk, my hand trembling as I held a pen, eyes glued to the Excel sheets, learning how to analyze stocks and build budgets. Every day, Aunt Samantha would stop by my desk, smiling with encouragement. "You're doing well. You've got a talent for this." That personal growth gave me confidence, turning me from a woman abandoned into a real financial professional, even if only part-time so I could care for Liam. Liam, my son, grew up like a ray of sunshine in that big house. The little boy with curls like Wesley's and blue eyes for me always laughed as he ran through the garden. I raised Liam with all my love, reading him stories every night, while Aunt Samantha became a true grandmother, sitting by his cradle, her hand caressing his cheek, whispering, "My grandson will grow into a fine man." The bond between her and me grew closer, like that of mother and daughter. We spent evenings by the fireplace, where she told me stories from her life, her eyes glistening with memory, and I shared my dreams for Liam, my voice full of hope. Wesley gradually became indispensable. From the cold man he once was, he opened up more, especially in the moments of caring for Liam. One evening, when Liam burned with fever, I panicked, sitting up all night wiping his body, until Wesley walked in carrying a cold towel. He sat beside the bed, laying his large but gentle hand on my son's forehead. "Let me watch him. You rest, Amanda." He sat down, softly wiping Liam's forehead, his expression tender in a way I'd rarely seen, his eyes full of concern. Liam stopped crying, clutching his hand, and I felt my heart stir. When Liam turned 1, I decided to throw a small party right in the big living room. I hung pale blue ribbons, baked a simple homemade cake, while Wesley helped me put up balloons. He clumsily tied the strings, a balloon snapping against his face, making Liam burst out laughing, the whole room filled with laughter. Aunt Samantha sat watching, her eyes shining. "You 3 look like a real family." When Liam blew out the candles on the homemade cake, he beamed, clapping his little hands. "Mama! Papa!" Wesley didn't reject the title of father. He held Liam close, his voice full of emotion. "Thank you, son." In that moment, I knew I had found where I belonged. But that happiness didn't last. When I turned 33, Aunt Samantha began to weaken. Her heart condition, sudden chest pains, shortness of breath, made it hard for her to move on her own. Wesley and I took turns caring for her. He rearranged his job, working from home more often, bringing his laptop and technical drawings into the living room so he could work while watching over his mother. He wheeled her into the garden, his voice patient. "Mom, it's beautiful today. Let's get some fresh air." I cooked nutritious soups, feeding her spoon by spoon, my face worried but forcing a smile. "Eat so you'll get better." We shared the burden, Wesley holding her when the pain came, his eyes red but his voice steady. "I'm here, Mom." 2 years later, her health declined sharply. The house grew quieter, the the halls filled with heavy footsteps, meals stripped of laughter. In her final days, Aunt Samantha called me over, her frail hand gripping mine. "Amanda, you've endured too much loss, but remember, you will never be alone. You, Wesley, and Liam. You are each other's family. This house, and everything I have, now belongs to you," I wept, lowering my head onto her hand, while she turned gently toward Liam, brushing his hair and leaving him a small velvet box containing the silver necklace she had worn all her life. Aunt Samantha passed away peacefully in her sleep. The big house she left behind felt empty now, with only me, Liam, and Wesley, a family unfinished. Samantha's funeral took place on a gloomy afternoon, drizzle falling across the cemetery as if the sky itself was mourning. I stood by the grave, holding Liam tighter in my arms, my 5-year-old son looking up at me with innocent eyes. "Mom, where did Grandma Samantha go?" Wesley stood beside me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, his voice steady and warm. "She's gone to a better place, Liam. We'll remember her forever." But right there at the funeral, while everyone bowed their heads in prayer, a familiar figure appeared from a distance. Robert, my ex-husband, wearing a worn suit, hair disheveled, face trying to look sorrowful. My heart clenched, my hands tightening around the bouquet of white flowers. He came closer, his voice trembling but false. "Amanda, I heard about Samantha. I'm so sorry. I came to see Liam and you." I looked at him, his eyes shifting, avoiding mine. Robert tried to approach Liam, holding out an old teddy bear that looked hastily bought from a roadside stall. "Liam, Daddy brought you a present," he said in a coaxing voice, kneeling down, trying to hug him. But Liam pulled away, clinging tightly to Wesley, wrapping his arms around his legs, looking up and whispering one fragile word. "Dad," but that word wasn't meant for Robert. I saw Wesley's jaw tighten as he bent down only to pat Liam's head, while Robert froze, forcing a weak smile, shoving the toy into my hand. I knew his real motive. He had heard about Samantha's inheritance, $5 million and the big house. He didn't come for love. He came for money, for his own fallen life. For 5 years he hadn't contacted me, but I had kept track of every detail about him. And in my mind replayed the memory of Liam's first birthday, the blue balloons bouncing off Wesley's face, making Liam laugh uncontrollably. The candlelight flickering as he and I sang together, while Samantha sat in her armchair whispering, "This is the real family," that feeling, steady, warm, complete, held me upright in front of the man who had abandoned me. And I understood that what I felt for Wesley wasn't something fleeting, but something built from hundreds of small moments like that. The funeral ended, and suddenly a thin rain fell harder, droplets scattering across the cold stone ground. Robert stood across the street, his suit soaked, his voice strained through the rain. "Can I come visit my son?" I didn't answer, only bent down to fix Liam's coat, then carried him into the car. Wesley followed right behind, one hand shielding me from the rain, the other holding Liam's small hand tight. As Robert still stood there, unwilling to leave, Wesley looked at him for a long moment, that deep brown gaze flashing with pain and unspoken love. He didn't speak, didn't need to explain, but I understood. In that look, I realized Wesley loved me, quietly and steadfastly, just like the love I had secretly held for him. In the days after the funeral, the wide mansion felt different. No more Samantha's footsteps echoing down the hall. No more jasmine tea fragrance in the mornings. No more stern but caring voice calling me down for breakfast. At night, the house was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the clock. Liam asleep soundly in his room, while I sat leaning against a chair, my hand touching the silver necklace she left me. Wesley spoke less than usual, often sitting for hours on the porch, silently watching the rain fall, as if keeping a space for me to breathe. Loneliness crept through every crack in the house, but I knew I wasn't completely alone, because Wesley and Liam's presence was the last warmth Samantha had left for me. 3 days after the funeral, as I sat in the living room sorting through Samantha's belongings, the doorbell rang. Wesley opened the door, his face darkening. Robert walked in, followed by James and Claire, my former in-laws. They wore black, faces feigning grief, but their eyes gleamed with greed as they looked around the grand house. Claire removed her gloves, her voice sweet. "Amanda, I think it's time our family sat down for Liam's sake. Children need their father, and it makes the most sense for the estate to be under a guardian's name. Robert is his legal father. He'll help you manage the inheritance from your aunt." James cleared his throat, cutting in. "The house and trust are large, daughter. You're still young, inexperienced, with a child to care for. Leaving the management to Robert is only right." Robert laid a stack of papers on the table. "We can sign a joint guardianship agreement. I'll handle the finances. You just focus on being a mother." I pulled out a chair and sat opposite them, setting my teacup onto its saucer, the porcelain clinking softly. "For the past 5 years, where were you when I went to prenatal appointments, when our son had fevers? I have every email, every record, the financial logs. No support, not a single call." "You left and never came back," Claire frowned. "Don't be so emotional. Women make mistakes when they get angry." I lifted my head, meeting her eyes. "I'm not emotional. I am the legal mother and the legal heir. Liam is safe, healthy, he has schooling, he has doctors, he has a home. You have no right to control my assets or my son's, especially after abandoning us." Robert's tone hardened, his words grinding out. "I'm his father. The law will—" I cut him off, still calm. "The law also recognizes abandonment over years of neglect." James slammed his hand on the table. "We only want to help." Wesley stepped out from the hallway, placing himself between me and them, his voice low and firm. "This conversation is over." Act 6. Just then, Mr. Patterson walked in, a tall man in his 50s, wearing a gray suit, carrying a black leather briefcase, his face stern, but his eyes sharp. He looked around the living room, where the air was still heavy, then nodded at me. "Amanda, are you all right?" When Robert and his family had stepped inside, Wesley had already picked up the phone to call Mr. Patterson, his personal attorney. I nodded, and Mr. Patterson sat down on the sofa, opening his case, his voice calm but commanding. "Don't worry, you are the legal heir under Samantha's will. And about custody." He pulled out a stack of papers, his voice ringing firm. "Here is the child custody waiver Robert signed 5 years ago when he abandoned you. No contact, no support. The court will recognize he fully relinquished his rights. You have full custody of Liam." Robert jolted, his hands gripping the armrest until his knuckles turned white. I was forced to sign," Claire cut in, her shrill voice snapping. "But Robert is the biological father. We have rights." Mr. Patterson interrupted, cold and precise. "Biological father. He never once fulfilled his duty." And about the inheritance. He produced a copy of the will, pointing at the line, "Samantha left everything to Amanda and Liam, with a special trust she created to safeguard the estate. This trust ensures no one outside Amanda and Liam can touch it, not even in court, and I guarantee they would lose." James shot up to his feet, his face red with rage, his voice a growl. "What kind of joke is this? We are family." Claire's lips trembled, clutching her purse. "Amanda, give Robert a chance." Mr. Patterson stood, his voice steel-edged. "I demand you leave this house immediately. If you continue to harass, we will file for a restraining order along with a claim for damages." James flushed deeper, slamming his hand onto his knee. "This woman is not capable." Mr. Patterson pointed to the stack of documents, steady. "The last 3 years of Amanda's financial competency records at the company, signed and verified by Samantha herself, say otherwise." Robert shifted his tone, stammering as he stepped closer to Liam. I just want to see my son. Liam, standing hidden behind Wesley's leg, clutching his wooden toy, made me bend down to straighten his collar. Then I lifted my eyes to Robert, speaking slowly so each word dropped heavy like stones on the floor. Your chance ended 5 years ago. Wesley shifted half a step forward, shielding me and Liam with his frame. Mr. Patterson gave a brief nod, closing his case. The door, please. Robert grabbed the stack of papers, his eyes flashing with frustration. Then, see you in court, and they turned. The sharp scent of cologne fading into the hallway. When the door shut, I exhaled, leaning into Wesley. Thank you. He squeezed my shoulder lightly, his voice deep and warm but hesitant. Amanda, there's something I need to tell you. I looked up, my heart racing. Wesley sighed, his eyes on the window where the dusk light spilled over the garden. I'm not just a construction engineer like Mom introduced. In truth, I built a tech company of my own. It grew large, and Mom knew it. She left her entire estate to you and Liam because she wanted you to have a solid foundation. She believed we would be a true family, not one ruled by money. I froze, then smiled, my hand brushing his cheek. Wesley, I love you for who you are, not for money. He nodded, knowing. In that moment, I understood Samantha's love more deeply. Not just an inheritance, but a wise arrangement so we could love each other freely. But Robert's family didn't stop. The calls began that very night, the phone vibrating endlessly like a nightmare. The first was Claire. Amanda, I'm sorry we abandoned you. It was a hard time. We're family. Robert regrets it. I listened, my heart tightening, my grip on the phone hard. But then I hung up, only exhaustion weighing on me. Wesley sat beside me, saying nothing, just holding me. The calls kept coming, Robert no longer hiding. Amanda, I need money to start a business for Liam's sake. James threatening. If you don't, we'll sue for custody. Each time, the pressure rose in my chest. That night, I sat on the steps, Liam's head resting on my shoulder, while Wesley handed me a warm glass of water. Let Patterson handle it. It will all quiet down. The next day, Mr. Patterson drafted a formal warning, listing times, phone numbers, the content of calls, along with notice that if it didn't stop immediately, we would file for a restraining order and report harassment. He sent it by registered mail with confirmation emails and instructed me to block all contact, while enabling call logs. By Tuesday afternoon, the phone went silent. So silent I could hear the ticking of the hall clock. I carried Liam along the porch, Wesley following, fixing a wind lantern as the breeze stirred the ivy, rustling softly. In that stillness, my heart eased, not because the storm had passed, but because I knew that from now on, no matter what storm arrived, I already had a place to anchor. The arms of my son, the certainty of Wesley, and the legal shield Samantha had wisely built for us. I stood before the mirror in Samantha's familiar bedroom, where the afternoon sunlight filtered through the delicate sheer curtains, casting a golden glow on the pure white wedding gown I wore, its silky folds hugging my body, reminding me of the peaceful days now past. Today, in this very mansion, the one whose towering white stone walls had witnessed my pain and my healing, whose green garden once echoed with Liam's laughter, I was preparing to step into a new chapter, a beginning filled with freedom and hope. Liam, now 6 years old, his dark curls shimmering under the sunlight and his blue eyes sparkling like the Arkansas sky, burst into the room, his small feet pattering across the polished wooden floor, holding the tiny ring box Wesley had carved himself from the oak tree in the garden. Mom, I'll carry the rings for you and Dad, Wes, okay? I promise I won't drop them, he said, his little voice full of excitement, his radiant smile showing his white baby teeth, melting my heart. I knelt down, stroking his soft hair, my voice trembling but full of love. Of course, sweetheart, you are the most special person today. and I am so proud of you." Wesley entered from the back door, dressed in a fitted black suit, his dark hair neatly combed, his chiseled face softened by a rare gentle smile, holding a bouquet of fresh lavender from the garden, Samantha's favorite flower. He took my hand, his rough but warm fingers squeezing lightly, whispering in my ear with a deep voice like a calm river, "You look beautiful, Amanda. Today we're not just getting married. We're officially becoming a family, the family Samantha always wished for." I smiled, my heart pounding like festival drums, feeling freedom expand in my chest, no longer shadowed by old wounds, but filled only with peace and a new beginning. The wedding took place in the backyard of the mansion, where strings of lights Wesley had hung along the old oak trees glittered, creating a fairy tale glow under the gentle sunset sky. Tables were draped in pure white linen, adorned with vases of vibrant lavender, the fragrance drifting in the soft breeze, recalling afternoons when Samantha used to sit by the window, telling her life stories. Friends and neighbors gathered, their laughter echoing with the soft piano music from the old instrument inside the house, each note like a whisper from the past. Liam, in a tiny suit with a green tie that matched his eyes, stepped confidently, though a little nervously, before the crowd, holding the ring box like a treasure, his small voice ringing clearly through the quiet air. "These are the rings for Mom and Dad, Wes. I love you both." Applause erupted, cheers mixing with laughter, and when Wesley and I exchanged rings, simple gold bands engraved with Liam's name inside, I looked into his eyes, saw love as deep as the ocean, and we kissed beneath a shower of falling confetti, while Liam jumped to hug us both, laughing loudly. "Our family is big now. Grandma Samantha must be smiling from the sky." In that moment, I felt a bond so profound, not born from blood ties, but from genuine love and the daily choice to stay together, to heal old scars and build new peace. I had no regrets in rejecting Robert and his family, those who once embodied betrayal and greed. Their lies now nothing but echoes drifting past my ears, unable to touch my heart. They belonged to the dark past, where I had once been lost in the pain of abandonment. But now, Samantha and Wesley were my true family, the ones who chose to stay, who held my hand through Samantha's cancer, through nights of tears when Liam was sick, and with me built light. Samantha's inheritance, the mansion full of memories and $3 million, I used carefully, never wastefully, investing wisely as she had taught me. I continued working in financial analysis at her old firm and devoted a large part of the inheritance to establish the Samantha Foundation, a charity in her name, supporting single mothers through life skills courses, childcare subsidies, and counseling. Each time I signed a check to help a woman struggling as I once had, I smiled, my fingers brushing the silver necklace she left me, as if seeing her proud eyes in the photo on the desk. "You've done well, Amanda. Keep spreading love." One peaceful evening while cleaning her old office, where the wooden drawers still held the familiar scent of ink and paper, I found a VHS tape carefully hidden in a lavender-engraved wooden box. My hands trembling, I played it on the old projector in the living room, the dim light casting onto the white wall, and Samantha's face appeared, her silver hair in a neat bun, her warm smile like a spring breeze, her deep voice echoing in the stillness. "Amanda, Wesley, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone. But I want to tell you, I hope you two will find each other the way I once found you both in my lonely life. Amanda, you are a strong girl, and Wesley, my son, protect them. Be a family, love and shield each other, like the stars in the Arkansas sky, always shining, even in the dark." Tears streamed down my cheeks. Wesley sat beside me, his hand tightening around mine, his voice choked with emotion and a quiet laugh. "She knew all along, Amanda. She always knew we'd be this way." Liam ran in, nuzzling into my lap, his small voice asking, "What's Grandma Samantha saying, Mom?" We sat there, in the dim glow of the screen, letting Samantha's memory embrace all three of us, like her final blessing, healing the last wounds and opening eternal peace. Now, I live in serenity in the mansion that was once a refuge and has become a home filled with laughter, with Liam running in the green garden, Wesley fixing his bike under the oak tree, and me brewing coffee each morning, breathing the fresh air, feeling healing spread through my heart like lavender blooming in the gentle spring. My life has changed, from a woman abandoned, clutching her pregnant belly on a dark night bus, to a mother, a wife, a woman free and whole, where every step is a new beginning. Every breath is acceptance and peace. I have learned that family is not the people who give you life, but the ones who choose to stay, who hold your hand through the darkness, who build light with you out of broken pieces, and let love heal like a calm river flowing through the cracks of the soul. True love is the fire you kindle yourself, from your own fragments, to warm the ones you cherish. And in that flame, you find freedom, freedom to live, to love, and to heal.